Hey, I'm here today with an exciting new guest. We're super thrilled to have her on the program. It's Jess. And Jess, pronounce your last name for me again. I just lost it.
It's Lenouvel.
Lenouvel. There, I had it on the tip of my tongue. So thank you for coming on, Jess. And Jess has an amazing background, a whole history, a family history in real estate I was reading this morning. And she has done extremely well herself. And so she's got a lot of insights for us this morning. I think she's going to help us grow our business. So Jess, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I started in real estate when I was, well, I consider it to be a baby. I thought I was a grown up at the time. But I grew up in the industry. Mom's been an agent for about 35 plus years. When I came out of school, really had no idea what I wanted to do with myself, right? I had one of those degrees that wasn't really going to help me go anywhere. And my mom just sort of made the observation that she thought I'd be good in the real estate industry. I mean, I'd been doing her paperwork since I was 13, like things like that.
Sure.
So I jumped in, I got licensed, and right off the bat, I joined a training brokerage.
Hmm.
And I remember early on sitting in these rooms with these people telling me that I needed to cold call and door knock and, flyer and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've kind of come out of my shell a lot since then, but 21-year-old Jess was very shy and really introverted.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, I don't think this business is for me.
Right.
Like those are just not things that I don't know if I will ever get comfortable doing.
Sure.
So yeah, I just kind of had to figure out my own path and figure out how to do things the way that I wanted to do them. Ended up selling real estate for about 14 years.
Nice.
I built a multiple seven-figure lean team,
Mm.
and then left it all behind. and we started the listing. My husband and I started the listings lab, and now we teach agents to go from 6 to 7 figures by creating marketing and being able to create relationships at scale.
Love it. So let's dive into this. So I think there's a few people out there that can totally relate to having a family member maybe in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be an advantage or a disadvantage.
Totally.
Right?
For me,
So
it
how
was
is
a
it?
disadvantage.
Yeah. How is it a disadvantage? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
people see it's
So
an advantage, right?
when I first got into real estate, I think there's this misconception that most new agents have that my friends and my family and my sphere are going to work with me.
Right.
Right. And so my friends and family and sphere were also friends and family and sphere of my mom.
Right.
Right. So,
Much more
we're the
experienced, right?
20 more years of experience,
Right.
20 more years of, or, 30 more years of life experience.
Right.
Who are they going to choose?
Sure.
So obviously I hadn't planned for that, but it became really obvious really quickly that I wasn't going to be able to rely on my sphere to grow my initial business.
Mm.
And so early on, there was this brand new thing called Facebook.
Right.
And back then it was just literally a news feed and some classifieds.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very basic as a platform, but everybody was starting to get on it, especially people who were my age and a little bit older.
Sure.
So I used to call it prospecting from my PJs, right? So I'd sit on my couch with my little computer and I would talk to people about real estate, about, what they were looking to do. I would help people figure out whether or not renters could buy, things like that. And that's how I actually really started my business and started it to grow. And I realized that it was just really about using the newer tools and the tools that I had to get in front of people. I didn't have to do it the way that everyone else was doing it.
So you're farming using Facebook as like your own CRM.
Pretty much. Like it wasn't even friends. It was just strangers that were in classifieds, because you used to be able to say like in search of housing or,
right. Yeah.
things like that. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would start talking to these people, giving them lots of information. I put guides together and resources together for people, and I would send them those. And then, a lot of them ended up coming back and just saying, hey, can you help me?
Love it. Love it. So from there, your business started to grow and you started to develop your own database then of clients.
Yep.
And so from there, I mean, kind of walk us through. So you built your own database of clients. Then did you kind of move over to more of a traditional model, a sphere-based model, or did you just keep doing what you're doing?
No, I just kept doing what I was doing. And over time, what I realized was that as technology changed, I had to adapt and change with it.
Sure.
And so when I met my husband, which was quite a while ago, I guess it was like I had a solid 6-figure business for the first 8 years. I was happy. I was still in my 20s. I thought this was great. I had disposable income, right? I had very few responsibilities and everything was good. Then when I met my husband, he also had a marketing background. And so we really started looking outside of real estate to see what service-based industries were doing outside of real estate and what was working. I mean, in my opinion, I think real estate is usually, 5 years behind. So we're slow adapters.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we started looking outside, we started bringing things in and testing them and seeing what was working. And that's really when my business really blew up. We went from 6 figures, 150, 200,000 a year to over $1 million in 6 months.
Wow.
It happened really quickly and I wasn't ready for it. And then that's really when I started building a team and we started leveraging and we started investing in automation and things like that. And we kept growing from there.
So let's park on this for a second. So what was like, give us an idea like that from that 150 to $1 million change. What was one of those concepts that you brought from outside the industry into the industry?
So, obviously this wouldn't work now, but at one point we had like 40 landing pages up. Right. Yeah. So we were collecting a lot of data. We were getting a lot of opt-ins. We were building our list really quickly.
Got it.
And we automated as much of the follow-up as possible. So it wasn't a situation where I was going to be able to call through all of those people. Sure. So we started, our email marketing got a lot better. Our copy started getting a lot better. I really made the mindset shift from I'm a realtor to I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
And, am I the best agent in the world? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I really, really was. I was definitely one of the best marketers in the city. So it really made a big difference.
So pivoting to today and your training and working with agents today, what's changed? I mean, obviously the tech has changed.
Yes.
But how have you adapted that kind of marketing mindset to what you're doing today or what you're training people to do today?
Yeah. So it's actually, in my opinion, it's easier today because, we have social media, we have the ability to retarget, we have, email campaigns when they're done well, actually will deliver at a higher rate than they used to. I think people think it's the opposite, but when your emails are really well crafted and your subject lines and your hooks are well crafted, people will open them. Deliverability, as long as you're not spamming, I think tends to be really good. And also if you're using good tech, but overall, I would say the ability to, we have agents in our programs that are doing, $300-400 million a year through social media.
Wow.
And I think that the basis of all of it is just really understanding human psychology. So like, what are the things that people need in order for them to say yes to you? Right. And so everything that we teach is inbound, because I think there's way too many agents out there that are building businesses off of chasing. Did you make your calls today? How many people did you talk to? All of those things. And that puts it makes you the bottleneck of the business. Right. And you can hire ISAs and you can hire people to call and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're still limited by the number of calls someone can make an hour.
Sure.
So a lot of what we focus on is scale. Right? Yeah. Is it unlimitedly scalable? And is it something that you actually want to do? Which is, taken from my book from right from the beginning. Right. Because, if I knew right off the bat that if I had gone down that more traditional route, that I wouldn't still be in this business.
Yeah. Wouldn't work.
Yeah. It wouldn't have worked for me because I wouldn't have worked it.
Right. So when you talk about specific tech, can you share with us, like deliverability? I know from personal experience from doing a lot of email myself. Yeah. That is a big challenge, is deliverability, right? How much is actually breaking through and getting open? And the platforms that you're using definitely matter. So can you give us a specific?
Yeah. So I personally use ActiveCampaign. I think it's very simple to use.
Yeah.
You don't have to have, you don't have to be the tech wizard in order to navigate in there.
Right.
And I find the deliverability is still really good.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of email marketing software out there. And I find that they're getting super complicated and really expensive.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. Like really expensive. So I mean, I did the dance, when I was selling real estate at one point of like pulling things in and out of MailChimp.
Yeah.
Right. Because I didn't want my whole list to be in there, because then it was so many thousands of dollars every month just to keep my list in there. So it was just so much work to be constantly rotating lists so that we weren't having to pay so much money. It just ended up being too much.
Sure.
So I really like that. I think for most agents, as long as they're not spamming people and that they're truly getting proper opt-ins, that most CRMs are going to be okay.
You do a double opt-in? I'm just curious.
Well, we do personally. It really depends how that person opts in, if they're coming in from the website or if they're coming from Facebook. If they're coming from Facebook, we don't.
You don't, but if they're coming from the website, you do. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And so for those that aren't copy savvy, you said something that some people might not understand, which is what's the hook. And so let's talk about that for a second, because I think this is an interesting topic when it comes to marketing and copywriting.
For sure. So the hook is basically just your attention grabber. Right. So it's just really, we have such short attention spans nowadays.
Sure.
I read something the other day that says the average goldfish's attention span is like, 17 seconds and we're down to like 13. Right. Like we're the worst.
Yeah. Right.
So you really have to be able to grab someone's attention, especially on social media and in emails. People are scanning through their emails and deciding what to get rid of. And on social media, it's that more button is the only thing that you're trying to get someone to do initially. Right. Hit that more button, get them to open up the rest of the post, or get them to watch more than, in a video, you have 3 seconds.
Right.
Right. So is that person going to stay, or are they going to go? Are they going to keep scrolling? So your hook, a really good hook will have some sort of originality. People sometimes take it to the extreme and it's too clickbaity.
Yeah.
But what is something that somebody really wants? I did a Facebook, I will just give you an example. I did a Facebook Live and it was a 45-minute long conversation, but and all it said was 50% of agents should quit.
Very good.
So that's an example of a really good hook, because everyone will say, what is she going to like? There's next? So much curiosity that comes with that.
Yes.
Right.
I think that word you use right there is curiosity, is really the essence of hooks, right?
Absolutely.
It's curiosity behind what is behind this? What's behind
exactly. This? I want more information.
Right.
Right. And I think that becomes the first piece of any kind of content creation, but there's also an understanding of psychology, right? Like what is going to intrigue that person? Getting into the brain of the person that you're trying to speak to and the person that you're trying to attract, and then being able to put in front of them and get them to consume the things that they need in order to choose you.
Right. I love it. So when you have your hook, they're coming in to look at what you've just said, whether that's a video or a piece of content. How much of your time is spent then, or would you recommend for an agent to spend in like content creation? Because I think some people get afraid of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to become a content creator, rather than selling real estate. What's your take on all that?
Well, I mean, content is a means to an end, right? So if you become a savvy content creator, you can spend 45 minutes a week on content and have content go out for the whole week. Or, I mean, I can spend 2 hours on content and have content for a month.
Yeah.
But it's really about the return on that time. So let's say that your audience continues to grow. With each piece of content that's consumed, you're essentially you have the attention of, let's say, 5,000 people in your market or 10,000 people in your market. And that is incredibly valuable and worth the investment of a little bit more time into creating really good content and building that audience because really, I'm a really big believer that nowadays audience is the new SOI, right?
Yeah.
Audience is the ability, because we have agents all the time who now get referrals from people they've never worked with.
Sure.
But people who are in their audience, and, Christmas dinner rolls around and someone says, we're thinking about selling our house. Well, I follow this person named Sarah on Instagram, and she's absolutely amazing. If I was going to move, I would use her.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's amazing how that can compound.
Sure.
And so it's not only your audience, but if you're doing a really good job at nurturing that audience will just kind of grow exponentially, and your referral base grows exponentially with it.
I love it. So when we're talking about audience building, what do you have metrics that you say, hey, if I'm training an agent and I'm kind of guiding this agent along, do I have metrics I'm trying to hit? Like, am I trying to get to 10,000 Instagram followers? Am I trying to get to, does it matter, or is it just as big as
it doesn't. And the funny things is it doesn't really matter. Like, we have agents that are doing over 7 figures with, 3,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be this big influencer in order,
or whatever. Right?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's more about going deeper rather than wider, right? You don't necessarily need all the followers. You need the right followers, right? And so when you're putting this content in front of them, are they consuming it? Are they engaging with it? And, is it landing?
Yeah.
And also, are you on the right platform?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because depending on who you're trying to target from a demographic standpoint, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, you don't need to be everywhere. And I actually highly suggest you don't try to be everywhere, because you won't do it well.
Right.
Yeah. But it comes down to, where are these people? Where do they live online? Mm-hmm. And can you show up consistently? And I think the consistency and the frequency is actually one of the most important pieces.
Let's talk about that. So what do you perceive as being, the right frequency? Is it daily? Is it twice a day? Is it 3 times a day? What is it?
I think it's once a day.
Yeah.
I think that if you post more than once a day, and Instagram stories and Facebook stories, that's a whole other ball game. You can post as much as you want there.
Right.
But from an actual like feed post, once a day, I think is the right, even 5 times a week, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to put too much pressure on yourself, but any more than that, and you're kind of putting a fork in the road with your audience, because if you put too much content in front of people, then you're not allowing that initial post to actually build in the algorithm.
Momentum. Yeah,
exactly. So like, let's say you post something, and whatever platform is going to look at the first hour. Mm-hmm. And if enough people like and comment based on, your audience in the first hour, then it'll continue showing to the next set of your audience for the second hour, and then the third, and so on. And so if you post too frequently, what ends up happening is you may get people seeing it, but chances are it's going to be the same people.
Sure.
And you're not actually allowing that piece of content or that post to work for you.
I just saw a study that said that when you post something, about 4 to 6% of your audience will be exposed to it
initially.
Right. Initially, depending on how good the content is, it'll grow from there. Right. Yeah. So let's talk about content creation in terms of video content, because everybody's like, we got to do video, right? So video is the new thing, not new, but we should all be doing it. What does video look like to you, and in terms of like a perfect model for video? What does that look like?
So I think my opinion is that, actually, it's not really my opinion. We've tested it. Most realtors, they over polish their videos.
Right.
So you don't need a production crew to come in and fade out and put music on it, because if it looks like an ad and it talks like an ad, people actually will scroll past it faster.
Interesting.
So the more authentic and the more raw it feels, like, obviously, don't post something that's a mess.
Yeah.
But all you really need is a decent phone.
Right.
And, most videographers are still filming horizontally, which does not work well in the feed for anything on social media. So your phone is actually the perfect way to do it, as long as you're filming vertically. Mm-hmm. And shorter, the new trend is shorter is better. Right. Sure. So, you're better off, instead of making a video that's 10 minutes long about my 3 top or my 5 top tips for whatever.
Right.
You do one at a time, and you keep them 15 to 30 seconds. right? You
Got it.
pack as much value as you possibly can in a short period of time, which is hard for a
Right.
lot of agents because they like to talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's how can you get as much across as fast as possible?
Sure.
Because when we're talking about reels and TikTok and things like that, the most important metric is rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
Is that person watching it and then scrolling? That counts. But is this person watching it and rewatching it, or continuing to play it more than once to absorb more? And that's a really good metric for the to signal to the algorithm that this person is really interested in what you had to say.
I love it. So going backward a couple of steps, because I think the reason why people don't do marketing on Instagram, Facebook, you name it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, is they don't understand the back end of it.
Yeah.
So like we have Facebook Creator Studio now and all this, but aside from that, when you get into the deeper side of Facebook Ad Manager, it's kind of confusing. I mean, I'm in there and I get confused all the time, right? I mean, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So did you get in there and learn it yourself, or did you hire people, or do you recommend people hire people? Or
I'm a really big believer that don't outsource anything until you can do it yourself.
Okay.
Because then you have very little control over whether they're doing a good job or they're not.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're treating this like a real business, which I'm assuming everybody who's listening to this is,
right.
There's an element of, do you understand every part of the business? Could you step into each of these roles if you needed to?
Right.
And I think that that's what creates a really good leader, but also, makes businesses a lot more sound. Sure. I think there's a lot of people who just throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and kind of hope that something's going to stick and something's going to come back from it. I hear all the time, Facebook ads don't work.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really interesting because, Nike and Amazon and, there's massive companies that advertise on Facebook. So they obviously, like, the Facebook ads work. It's just that, chances are whatever you're using, whatever you're doing isn't working.
Right. What you're doing is not working.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of agents will do the bare minimum. I think boosting is a waste of money.
Yeah.
Right. But so many agents out there are boosting and boosting and boosting and looking at that vanity metric of how many people have seen this.
Right. Who cares?
And who cares? Facebook's going to put it in front of as many people as possible, whether they're relevant or they're not. Right. Because you haven't actually created a campaign or given it targeting metrics, and you haven't created the ad in a way where you've told Facebook or allowed Facebook to figure out how you're going to get the best result from that ad or from that campaign.
Is that part of what you train to, is learning that back end?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason we also don't use third-party platforms or anything like that. We teach people how to do it directly into Facebook Ad Manager, and how to be in control of that lifeblood of your business. Because I think that it's so important too from a consistency standpoint.
Sure.
And the word consistency and predictability is probably the number one and two words that I hear from agents. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
I just want consistent business. I want my business to be more predictable. And, my opinion is if you 100% rely on repeats and referrals, you'll never have that because you're relying on other people to market for you. Right. And you have no control over what they're going to say, if they're going to have the conversation. Doesn't matter how many Popeyes or how many gifts you give people. I think it's so important that you are able to generate your own business.
Yeah.
So that you have that predictability, like that marketing piece becomes the cake and the repeats and referrals are the icing.
Got it. So let me ask you this. So obviously we got social media is one big category, but a whole other big category is Google marketing.
Yes.
And so is that a part of this mix?
It is after the fact.
Okay.
So, I think that once you get to a certain level, Google is fantastic for that. Right. And but a lot, again, it comes down to, have you done your research? Do you actually know what you're doing here? Are you using proper keywords? Because I think a lot of the time we call it just kind of spray and pray, right? I'm just going to carpet bomb my market and hope that somebody does something. The retargeting, capabilities on Google are mostly banners and things like that. They're not relationship building type content, which is why I love the Facebook platforms for that, because you're putting content in front of people and you're actually able to retarget people and stay top of mind using high value content, which is much harder to do in Google.
Gotcha.
But I think that Google display ads and, things like that do have a place once you've gotten to a certain level and you have a certain amount of market share.
And it's a lot of retargeting, right? Yeah. So let's talk about TikTok for a minute.
Okay.
Obviously, TikTok is blowing up, but marketing on TikTok. I mean, I know we can do TikTok videos, but are you doing an ad spend on TikTok now?
No.
Okay.
It depends. It really depends on the person. I think that very few people are really excelling from the real estate space on TikTok, because TikTok, you have to be super entertaining.
Right.
It's not, yes, to a certain extent, there are some people in like financial planning and things like that who are growing really great audiences. Do I think that's going to happen in the future? Do I think TikTok, are people going to be spending money on TikTok down the road? Yes. But I think for the time being, there's still so much that you can do organically. It's pretty easy for someone who is decent on video to grow on TikTok. So I think without spending money. And the For You page on TikTok is so curated. Like their algorithm is just so bang on.
Specific, right?
Yeah, and it's so specific, right? And so like there are people even in my TikTok feed that on my For You page that I see regularly. I don't follow them.
Right.
But TikTok knows that I watch their videos and they're relevant to me. So they just keep putting in front of me.
It's your half-second hesitation that keeps them in front of you, right? So
exactly.
Like, oh, wait, well, okay.
Yeah. And they know, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, there's a lot of opportunity organically. I think that, as long you can use the same content too on TikTok and on Reels. It just has to have a really great hook. And you need to have fun with it. Right. Like this is a whole other level of video editing and things like that where you can have fun, but there's so many fun apps that make it super easy.
Sure.
So you don't
give us
have
an example
to
of
be
an app. Do you have an
editor.
app for everybody?
Pardon?
Do you have an app that you'd recommend?
InShot.
InShot?
InShot. INSHOT.
Got it. Okay.
It's probably the most user-friendly and easiest one for any kind of editing, especially if you're doing some sort of transition or something like that. It's much easier than to do it in the native app.
Got it. So one theory that I've had a lot of people talk about with me is kind of a 3 or 4 step process where you have on social media is where you start with an engagement ad where you pretty much get people to stop and watch what you're doing. And then from the engagement ad, you remarket your next ad to them to get them to hopefully engage. And then you're doing kind of branding ads after that as continuous retargeting.
So we do things a little differently.
Okay, how do you do it?
So what we do is we actually do an opt-in as a first ad.
That's your first ad. Okay.
Because I find that video views ads and things like that, like that can get expensive really quickly.
Right.
And just because someone looked at something for a certain amount of time, like if you're going to do something like that, you want to make the video views ad like a minute, right? Because if a lot of people are doing 5 to 10 seconds, someone can very easily, I do it all the time when I leave something on my screen and it's not actually, I'm not actually watching it. Right.
Yeah.
So we tend to do some sort of an opt-in, some sort of high value something right off the front end, listings, hot sheets, like guides, things like that, something that they're going to get something back for that is going to be of value.
Gotcha.
Then from there, we retarget with 9 different types of content. So if I'm going to simplify it down, I would simplify it into 3 buckets, which is authority content, personal content, and social proof.
Gotcha.
And when I say social proof, I don't mean just listed, just sold. If I could take every just listed, just sold post off of social media, I would do it. It drives me mental. Like I don't know why agents think that it's the right thing to do, but social proof is things like case studies, testimonials, and PR.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So authority, which is going to be lessons, something about your process or your signature system, things that myth busting, something that's going to get that's credibility, but also is of high value and speaks to someone where they're at in their journey. Personal content is personal beliefs, personal philosophy, personal story. Gotcha. People make decisions emotionally first. right? So we need to
mm-hmm.
give them enough so that they feel connected to you or your team, like on a personal level. There's some sort of relatability there as well. And then the social proof, which is going to give them they've done this before, they have happy clients. This is what I need.
Gotcha. Okay. And obviously Facebook versus Instagram is going to be a different demographic group. Is that kind of how you look at it?
It's starting to kind of be the same. Yeah, it's, Instagram used to be like the cool young thing.
Right.
And it's not anymore.
No.
So, it's funny. Like, I was talking to my mom the other day. She's, 70.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know she doesn't know what her Facebook login is, but she's on Instagram every day. And I was like, oh, interesting. Right.
Yeah,
I think that Facebook is still a little bit of an older demographic, to a certain extent, but I think too that Instagram is Facebook, the company's
they own
version of, like, they're really trying to go heavy to compete with TikTok. Are they there yet? No, but I think that it's starting to level out. You're definitely a younger demographic on TikTok.
Sure.
Definitely. Yeah. So, if you're working with downsizers or like seniors or something like that, TikTok's not your friend.
Right. It's not the space to be in, right?
But, we also have to think about, if you are working with downsizers or empty nesters or someone that is, at the end of their real estate journey, it's mostly their kids that are going to be super involved. So the type of content that you're putting in front, that you can still go there, but you're not going to be talking to the buyer or the seller themselves. You're going to be talking to someone that's influencing some of those decisions.
So real quick, on stories. So I think there's a misunderstanding among a lot of agents I talk to of what exactly is the difference between what I'm posting as a story versus what my feed post. Yeah. So how would you describe the difference?
Okay, so in your feed post should be high value content. Okay. So that if someone finds your account, they can scroll through your feed and have everything that they need in one place to say yes. Right? So solid high value content. Some of it can be personal, but like a picture of your soup and, a little, a one-liner that says, best soup, not going to cut it anymore.
That's what you did before real estate, right?
Exactly. Right. So, what you want instead is 90% of your content, 90% of your images or video should have you in them. You're building a personal brand.
Right.
So your feed should be high value content that is solid content that you want to stay there because it's more permanent. Now, your Instagram stories can be things like behind the scenes, your day-to-day life, conversations that you've had. You still want to populate some authority in your stories, but you might want to direct people in your stories to your static post, things like that. You have to be more entertaining in your stories. People want to see, people are so curious. It's basically your stories are your reality TV show.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Your reality TV show. That's really, really good. Love it. So with the difference between, and here's another big confusion point among a lot of agents, is personal page versus business page. What am I posting to either one?
The same thing.
Same thing. So you cross post everything same?
Not at the same time.
Okay.
So that we don't share across platforms. We don't share across pages because it actually will hurt your reach. But what we do is, okay, let's say you post a piece of content on your business page on Monday. You can post that same piece. You can use the same image or different image, whatever you want, on your personal page on Thursday. Right? Because your organic reach on your business page, especially on Facebook, is terrible.
Yeah, you're never going to reach anybody.
You're never going to reach anybody. Facebook is a business, and you're waving your hand in the air saying, I'm a business too. And they're saying, okay, great, then pay to play. Right. But your personal page is your social network. Right. And so what they want, they will show that content to more people. So I'm a really big believer organically. Personal profiles are really great, especially for the organic reach. You do want to post the same stuff on your business page because you have to have a business page in order to kind of be legitimate so people can find you. But in my opinion, your business page is really going to be like somewhere where you house your ads.
Gotcha. Yeah. You have to have it to do advertising, period, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of so we kind of talked a lot about lead gen, but once you have the lead and you're putting them into a system, a drip system after that, or are you hand incubating them?
So
Curating them?
it's a combination, right? So it depends on the person. Some people want to call, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Sure.
So that person is being extensively retargeted.
Mm-hmm.
All the nurture stuff is happening, on their screens every day. They're also going through an email drip campaign that is very specific. Some of it is actually their content as well in emails, so that they're being educated. They're being given things. It's not just call me, call me, call me.
Yeah.
Right. We definitely don't teach call to action on everything. There is nothing worse than, here's a picture of my family. Call me for all of your real estate needs. Right. I don't know who's teaching this, but, I think that you have to have an element of EQ and figure out, if this is authority, you can have a call to action on it. If it's personal, please don't, and just making sure that you're giving enough value and that people are actually opening it. Because
Right.
if your open rates are low, it means either there's something wrong with your deliverability or that your subject lines aren't strong enough.
What do you define as a good open rate?
30-40%.
Well, that's high. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. So 30 to 40% of people that have already reached out and asked to be, they're not opt-in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would be shocked at how many agents will put me on their email list. And I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Right. Why would
And I have no idea how I ended up on this list, but I definitely did not opt in for this.
I'm not opening it.
Right. And so really, like, at the end of the day, I think there's an element of scarcity that comes into people's heads when they're talking about this kind of marketing. And my list needs to be big and all of these things. It doesn't. You can create a tremendous amount of success with fewer people if you do it well.
Yeah.
It's not really, real estate is no longer like a numbers game the way that it used to be.
Yeah.
It's really about, like, do you understand your psychology? Have you done your market research? Is your messaging really bang on? And are you actually putting high value, really well done content in front of people?
So there's a difference between an open rate and a click-through rate, right? So open rate means they opened your email. Click-through rate means they're clicking on whatever you're presenting. So what do you look for a click-through rate?
I mean, we don't have a tremendous amount of click-throughs, because I find that the more you ask someone to click, the fewer people you're actually going to get at the end result.
Sure.
So, every once in a while we'll have like a book a call, or, some sort of like hey, I was in Entrepreneur Magazine this month and here's my PR article and, like, here's the link to it.
Sure.
I actually don't think your click-through rate matters that much. I think
more about your open.
Yeah, it's really more about the open rate and how many people are actually, like, reading through it. That tends to be, for me, what I tend to look at the most. You want to limit, which is why we don't use landing pages anymore, right? Landing pages used to be like the hot new thing. And I used to do tons of landing pages, but landing page conversions started to drop tremendously, especially in real estate. So, a Facebook lead form is going to auto-populate that for you, and is going to put you're going to have a much higher conversion than if you take someone to a landing page and then they have to click through again.
Got it. So in terms of scheduling all this stuff out, so there's a lot of scheduling here. Are you using a scheduling app for all your posts?
Creator Studio.
Creator Studio?
Yeah.
For Instagram and Facebook?
Sometimes later.com. I tend to I don't schedule out my organic stuff. I actually I tend to post in real time. Only because I have a team, right? Yeah. Like, it's not just me, but I like I think you can schedule out. You can't schedule onto your personal Facebook profile easily.
Right.
So there is now one company that has figured out how to do it, but it's glitchy. And so I don't even want to go there yet. But really, it's as simple as saving something as a draft and just having a reminder come up on your phone and just hitting post.
Right. Gotcha. So with the, all these multiple platforms that we can choose from.
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram sounds like the go-tos.
They're going to be like your bread and butter.
Your bread and butter. What about LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Pinterest? Kind of
I'm a
those
lover of
outliers.
Pinterest.
Mhm.
You have to do a lot. You have to blog in order to have success on Pinterest, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You have to blog. You have to, and you have to have Pinterest is a lot of content,
Right.
and you can't repurpose content from other platforms on Pinterest. So I mean, if you're going to do Pinterest, it's going to be a slow burn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn depends on your demographic. Most agents are using LinkedIn to connect to other agents.
Sure. Yeah.
If you, let's say, are in like New York City and you specialize in helping corporate women,
yeah,
LinkedIn's
perfect.
a fantastic place for you to be.
Good spot.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And honestly, we have a lot of agents who have a lot of success on LinkedIn because very few people are creating decent content there.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's just it's job updates galore and like shared articles, and no one's actually really creating content and properly posting it with images and everything on LinkedIn. So there is, in my opinion, I think there's an opportunity there. You also have the ability to grow a lot more connections on LinkedIn, per day. Facebook will only allow you. Facebook, you can only have 5,000 friends. Right. So, like for someone who is like, for me, I'm constantly having to rotate things because you hit that 5,000, then I get messages. I can't add you as a friend. Okay, let's scroll.
So
let's
go
figure
find
out
somebody
like
we can take
who's not
off,
engaging with my stuff, who's not seeing it, who's someone I don't want to work with. And it's a bit of a job. Whereas like LinkedIn, you can have as many connections as you want.
Right. Interesting. So if somebody wants to dive in this deeper with you, what would they do? How would they find you, and how would they get involved with your training and your programs?
I would say the best place to start is my Facebook group.
Okay.
There's like hundreds of free trainings and things like that in that group. It's basically where I spend the majority of my time. It's called the Listings Lab Method for real estate agents. So from a URL standpoint, it's just facebook.com/groups/the Listings Lab.
Listings Lab. Okay. Got it. Perfect. Well, you gave us a ton of content. I wrote a bunch of notes myself. I think you're an amazing resource for agents. And what a great way to build your business. I think it's an amazing and very interesting approach. So I think it's really fascinating. Actually, I could talk to you for hours because I think
we have a great time doing it.
It's actually very, very interesting to me. But so thank you so much for being on the program. And, I'm going to dive into your group. I'm going to become a member.
Awesome.
And I encourage everybody that's listening to do the same. So thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.